Oh, look at this. Nothing better than ice cream, especially when it's the real thing. And this is a beautiful pistachio ice cream. Chock full of nuts and extra flavorful. Try this recipe. You're going to get blown away by it. Hello. Welcome back to Texas Cooking Today. On this episode, it's all about ice cream. Now today in specific, we're going to be making a pistachio ice cream. And before we start this, I do want to mention there are two basic ways that you can make an ice cream, and that is the French method, which uses egg yolk that forms a custard with some cream, and that makes a very light, fluffy ice cream. It's wonderful. But there's also the American method that does not use any eggs at all. And that's the one I'm going to be showing you today. And it's going to be American-style pistachio ice cream. So come a little closer. Let's take a look at what we have to cook with. Alright, let's go over our ingredients for this ice cream. Now this batch is a large batch of ice cream, and it makes a little over 2 quarts worth of frozen material. But what we have here is going to be 2 cups of milk, 2 cups of half and half, and 4 cups of heavy cream. I have here 1 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, 2 cups of pistachio nuts, 1/2 a teaspoon of salt. This is 2 teaspoons of almond extract. It's hard to see, but it's there. And here I have 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now the vanilla doesn't really shine out in this dish much, but it does make for some background notes that work very well with the almond. So definitely go ahead and add the 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. The first thing we need to do is to scald our milk, and while we do that, we're also going to dissolve the sugar into that and then start adding some of the other ingredients. Also, we're going to want to process some of these. You don't have to, but I find it's nice to take a portion of these and to reduce them down to some smaller particles in a chopper or with a knife. And I'll show you a couple different ways of doing this. But to grind down your nuts just a little bit so that they have a little more flavor dispersal in the ice cream itself. And you'll see how that works. It's really neat. So anyway, we have all of our ingredients. Let's get on with scalding the milk. Before we get on with scalding our milk, one thing I did want to mention is when it comes to your nuts, you're going to want to have unsalted nuts if you use salt in the recipe. If you have salted nuts, certainly leave out any extra salt in your recipe. And if these things are heavily salted, they won't work. They can be lightly salted, and that's fine. But don't go with too much salt in the nuts. So let's go on to scalding the milk. Let's scald it. Bad milk. Scalding is where you heat the milk to just under its boiling point. So we're going to heat it to 180 degrees. Its boiling point is about 185. And I have a thermometer here. So that way we can all watch as our temperature rises on this. Now, put some fire underneath it. And what I'm going to want is about a medium-high heat. And when you're scalding milk, you want to make sure that you stir it the entire time. If you do not, then it's going to skin over and it's going to give you some problems. Now I'm going to use a spatula for this. You can also use a whisk, or you can use a wooden spoon. Alright, it looks like I'm hitting 180 now. So at 180 degrees, I pour in my sugar and continue stirring to work that in. And we're going to want to fully dissolve that sugar in this milk. And this is an important step. This keeps you from having a gritty texture in your ice cream. You don't want a gritty texture in the ice cream. And so pre-dissolving your sugar in the hot milk pretty much does the trick. Now at this point, I'm going to shut off the heat, and I'm going to continue occasionally stirring this until I have it fully incorporated. And we're going to cool this down to about 120 degrees before I add anything else into it. So, give it time to cool, and let's turn our attention to chopping up part of those nuts. As we are waiting for that milk to cool off, I mentioned to you I would show you a couple of different ways of doing your nuts. Now, first of all, let's place some into a simple Ziploc bag. Take a skillet or other pan and just very easily go over them. And as you can see, you get a very nice broken product. So this is one way we can do this if you don't have a nut chopper. Now, of course, if you do have a nut chopper, everything is wonderful for you. We can take some of those nuts, and this is a very old one. I've had it for just about forever. Oops, I'm getting messy. Put some more of those in there. There we go. Get him emptied out there. Now this one works with a as an attachment for a hand blender. Pulsing it helps you to keep a more uniform chop. Now another thing I could do is I can put this right down into my hot milk, and that really disperses a lot of the oils and everything that comes right off of those nuts, and it adds a lot of flavor to this mixture. So on this go around, it goes in. I get the smaller bits, and that's going to just release flavor in a wonderful way because of that warm liquid. Our sugar is already fully dissolved, and we're simply waiting for our temperature to fall. Right now, it's down to about 140. So we just keep waiting. It has been about an additional 15 minutes, and my temperature has now come down to 120 degrees. So we're good on that. Next thing I need to do is start adding in the rest of my ingredients. I'm going to dispense with this utensil, and I'm going to pick up this utensil. And what we're going to do is start with the half and half. I'm just going to stir that in into that wonderful sweetened pistachio mix that we made. Pistachio is related to the almond. I'm adding the rest of my nuts. Put in the vanilla flavorant as well as the almond flavorant, which is the bulk of the flavor. Vanilla just adds a background tone that's a familiar flavor for people, but they won't be able to pick it out. Just playing with the taste buds a little bit. Now, last ingredient is the cream. And that is 1 quart of cream that we want in this. And cream is really heavy, so I'm going to take my spatula and work the rest out of that. I'm going to get about an extra ounce. There we go. Now I have a mixture that I can put in my ice cream churn. Now this is like I said, this is a large batch. It's going to be a little over a 2-quart batch. What we're going to do is take an ice cream churn. Now everybody's churn is a little bit different. Mine is a modern electric version of an very old design that uses a paddle inside, or what's referred to as a dasher is what this item is. And then of course the churning pot, and a lot of these turns the pot and the dasher stays stationary, and that's exactly the way mine works. So what I want to do now is just gently pour this off. And again, we have that cream problem, so I'm just going to take my spatula, work out what's the remainder in this pot, get it right down in there. I don't want to miss anything. What do you know? I was able to do it without too much trouble. Now what I want to do is I want to turn this machine on and let it turn while I start adding ice and salt in this. And we want to use both so that we can get what's called a brine, which is a mixture that's actually colder than the 32-degree ice. Now what we're going to do is build this in layers. I want a layer of ice, then I want to add in some of my salt. If you get salt on the top, don't worry about it. We'll scrape it off in just a moment. More of the ice. Add in a little bit more of our salt. And I'll just keep building it up this way until I get all the way up to the top. One thing I did want to mention before we finish the turning on this is that these churns have a weep hole on them so that when the brine solution, the liquid on this rises up, it doesn't pour into the pot where the ice cream is. And so I have a hole on the side. You need to make sure that never gets blocked. And I'm going to put it down inside of a pan. Now you can do this in a sink basin. You can do this out on your porch. You just need some place for that brine water to drain off. In this case, it allows us to watch it. I catch all of the brine in this pan, and this actually helps to hold in some of the cold as well, so it improves the refrigerating ability. Remember, when the ice and salt start getting low in your machine, that's when it's time to go ahead and add more. Make sure it stays full. Now here we can clearly see the ice cream churning inside, and you'll notice how it has risen up, and this is a good sign. It's getting near the end. So we just have to wait for that to finish turning, and when it gets stiff enough, it'll stop this motor, and that's when we're ready to pull the dasher out. My ice cream maker has come to a stop now, and I wanted to point out one little thing, and I'm going to use my thermometer here. I wanted to show you the temperature on a brine that is properly prepared. Now right down we're down to 8.3, still dropping, 6.3, 5.9 degrees. So you can see why the ice cream freezes so quickly. This has been running for about 45 minutes now, and I have gotten good freezing because I've got right around 6-degree temperature on that brine, or possibly a bit colder at the bottom. So what I need to do now is to remove the dasher while I still can. And what I want to do is remove this motor. I'm going to take that off on my dasher. There we go. And it's not coming out easily. It's going to fight me. I expect it to. Rotate this, clean off the other side. So you just got to kind of clean this guy off. I'm going to want to cool this just a little more for it to set just a bit longer. So I need to put this right down in there. Put my lid back on the top. I'm going to use the motor just to hold it in place. It doesn't have to be hooked up. I'm just using that as a weight. And I can surround this with a towel. It'll help keep in the cold. And I can let this set up for about another 2 hours in here if I want, but this should only take about an hour. And it's going to firm up my ice cream real nice and it'll be just perfect. Altogether, that's pretty simple, isn't it? Just a little bit of cooking and a bit of mixing, and then let the ice cream machine do the rest. Every ice cream machine's a little different. Yours may take 30 minutes to make ice cream. It might take 2 hours to make ice cream. So just be patient, let the machine do what the machine does. And remember, the more salt you use to your ice, the colder that brine gets. If you use an equal quantity, pound for pound, 10 pounds of ice, 10 pounds of salt, the resulting liquid will actually be 0 degrees. That's how 0 degrees on the Fahrenheit scale was achieved. It was through that conversion. We don't really need it that cold, but as you've seen, this got down to about 5 degrees, and that's more than cold enough to make a really good ice cream. So, just let it finish setting up. You can do that in there, or you can transfer it to your freezer, either one. Either way, in about an hour, we're going to have some fabulous, fabulous pistachio ice cream. Oh, it was just that easy, wasn't it? Well, now, only an hour later, I have this beautiful pistachio ice cream. Loaded with nuts. Smooth, creamy. This is fabulous. And the nice thing is, even though this has a lot more cream in it than most ice creams you'll see, the extra fat content keeps it soft in the refrigerator, in the freezer. Well, I'm going to finish that off real quick. Thank you. Thank you for watching Texas Cooking Today. And thank you for subscribing. And if you haven't, please do. And you have a good day. Bye-bye. Thank you for watching Texas Cooking Today, the show where you can get great recipes and the best techniques are taught. Please subscribe to Texas Cooking Today, where you will always find something hot and ready to eat.